Edwin Shuker was born in Baghdad and left Iraq in rather difficult circumstances, and he will now tell his story.
My name is Edwin Shuker. I was born in 1955. By the time I was born, my father was Shaul, a lawyer, my mother, Victoria. They were the children of a long and... Can you speak up? Yeah, can't hear. Okay. They were the descendants of a very... Yes? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Of a community which is the longest community that lived outside its birthplace ever. It is the longest diaspora, 2,600 years. But by the time I was born, my grandparents, my uncles, my aunts, I never knew. They all left. They left in 1951. And they were given a list of what they could take with them. 4 books, 1 wedding ring, few dresses, few sterlings, exact detail of what they can and what they cannot. But just like as you heard before, we were not able to mention the word Israel, let alone be told that we had aunts and uncles somewhere else. So we've lived all our lives until we left, until we escaped in 1971, knowing nothing other than my father and my mother. My very first memory was when I was 7 years old. My first memory of what it means to be a Jew, that is. Queuing outside in a hot August summer day with the entire community was asked that each one of us would queue to prove that as a Jew he still exists and lives in Iraq. Those who did not, their nationality were taken away, their assets were frozen and taken away. What was the result of that queue? The result of that queue was this yellow identity card. That was in February 1963. A new card to identify a Jew from the rest of the population. This is a country where we lived 2,600 years. We were always loyal. We've never attempted any revolutions or terrorist acts, yet we are the ones who have to carry now a separate and a different color identity. And so wherever we went, from then on, you have to show, and immediately that color would show who you are. I remember things going from bad to worse as we approached the 1967 war. I clearly remember 2 guys from the post office knocking the door and asking where the phones are. And I remember how they pulled these phones out of their socket, ripped the cords out, and left the whole community without any methods of communication. I remember every Wednesday there was a newspaper that would publish letters from citizens who lived near Jews, who could enlighten the rest of the population of any suspicious activities their neighbors had. And I remember how we waited for that Wednesday afternoon to see whether our names were on it or not. And there were always some letters. There were always some wonderful citizens who would say, I don't know what's happening next door, but so-and-so, the Jew, lives next there. And at 9 o'clock in the evening, they always switch off, pull out the curtains, and something strange going on. I remember most of the community being fired from public places. I remember the clubs suddenly put a sign saying Jews are no longer welcome. I remember universities stopping to take Jewish kids. I remember the panic and the fear, as rumors had it that they were going to put us in a concentration camp. And so as children, we have lost the innocence of that child. I remember how we were listening to the radio and to the news as if our lives depended on it. And it actually did depend on it. In 1968, the Ba'ath Party came to power, and the henchman was Saddam Hussein, and suddenly things have turned really nasty. People were being arrested in the streets, youngsters, older people. By the end, a quarter of every man from the Jewish community was arrested at some time or another. Torture, unspeakable. I could not even mention it here. If anyone is interested, you should read In the Hell of Saddam Hussein. This is a small booklet written that a man dared to write what sort of torture he witnessed in these places. I remember January 1969, waking up with my sisters and to hear that that day was a national holiday. And no schools, no work, there's a celebration. And I remember how we were jumping up and down in glee and joy that we were going to miss school. They asked us to switch on the radio to hear the reason for this joy or occasion.
January 27.
January 27, 1969, we heard that they arrested aspiring. The guys there confessed, they were tried, they were sentenced, they were executed, and their bodies would be hanging from the Tahrir, the public square of Baghdad. 9 Jews, 9 innocent Jews, as innocent as you are, had the word Jew written in white sheets, wrapped their bodies, and hang there from morning to the evening. And 500,000 or more people were dancing and throwing sweets at each other under these bodies. And that was live coverage. And there, for the first time, we were seeing relatives, parents of our friends. And so life resembled death as the summary arrest and torture carried on and on.